Hey everybody, Jimmy and Brad from Cashflow Tactics here to discuss another controversial money topic. So our last two videos were two new ideas that absolutely fascinated me and changed my idea on how I'm going to run my real estate portfolio. But just to remind you, what we talked about was free and clear real estate is not something to desire. It's a myth. And then the other topic we talked about was you want to extend your amortization and leverage as much as you can with your portfolio.
Yep.
Say hi, Brad.
Yep. Hey guys, get ready to put those thinking caps on because we're going to go into some mind twisting aspects of this, but we want to really make sure it's clear why people understand, like why fundamentally what we taught over the last two meetings is real. So we're going to take a step into the conceptual today. It's going to be a lot less hard numbers and spreadsheets like it was last time. But if you can understand this concept, it's going to change how you think about money in general and productivity and profit in general. And these are the things that the wealthy understand that the average person just can't see through, which holds them back in lots more than just trying to pay their house off.
So I always knew real estate was a good investment because I'd be able to use inflation. I knew the government central bank's going to continue to print money, so the property is probably going to rise in value. But the debt always made me a little bit nervous until our conversations the last couple of weeks. So the whole time we've been having these conversations, I've been saying to myself, if we were in Gold's Gulch or an absolute free market economy, or at least on a gold standard, would these same things be true?
And then this is a great mind exercise to say, okay, why is what we're dealing with true? We can look at when it wouldn't be true.
Right.
And in a free economy, or another way to say that would be a hard money economy, an economy where the government is not manipulating the money supply and we have true freedom or a free market in that area, the rules would be completely different. Okay.
Well, you can have a non-free market on a gold standard.
True.
Like the Soviets still traded gold.
Right.
They were
but
not free. So,
sort of. It just doesn't, it rarely has lasted for very long until things were manipulated and changed. Like what a lot of people don't realize, people think the dollar's been around for 200 or 300 years, and that's not true. The dollar has changed several times over. Our currency has died and been replaced several times over, but because we gave it the same name, it feels like it's still there.
Yeah, and if you really study American history, one place Americans have not been exceptional has been in private money.
Exactly.
All the colonial currencies went bankrupt. All the colonies, basically, their currencies went to zero. During the Revolution, the Continental went to zero. The Confederate dollar went to zero. And the original greenbacks during the Civil War, I think they lost 70% of their value in 5 years.
Yep.
So inflation.
And everyone wants to blame, wildcat free market bankers that did this, but there were, to continue the history lesson, there were two main reasons this was. And with almost every inflationary event, not just US, but worldwide, it was linked to a war that needed to be financed. And they had to pay with money that they didn't have. And governments can't save, governments can't produce, so they printed money in order to be able to finance it. So almost every single one, if not every single one, has that attached to it. Now I'm spacing on the second one. But anyway, that's the big one, is that there was a war attached to that inflationary event.
Right.
Okay.
And the founding fathers were so familiar with fiat currencies going bankrupt that they put in the Constitution that the dollar had to be attached to gold. And then Nixon, what was it, 1971, took us off the gold standard?
Yeah. And we'll visit that too. So, the other one just came back to me. The other thing that makes possible what we're talking about is fractional reserve banking. Without fractional reserve banking, there could be no wild card free market wildcat bankers that we blame all this on. So it really is a function of the government enabling, and most of the time being the driver behind the inflationary events that we talk about. It has nothing to do, under a free market, it couldn't happen. Or at least not to the extent that it's happened in the past.
Well, let's talk conceptually for a couple minutes. If we were on a gold standard, would I would I want to pay off my houses early? Would I want free and clear? Would I want a portfolio of free and clear real estate?
Okay. And the answer to that is yes, you would. Okay. You would want, or you would be much more incentivized to pay off not just real estate, but businesses and anything else you have. Debt would not be as central as it is now.
And why is that? What would be the difference?
So here's a couple things that need to be understood. I brought up these two images. At a quick glance, it looks like these are both just $20 bills, right? But there's a couple really key pieces to this that we need to look at. On the left here is a current $20 bill. And this is a Federal Reserve note. Jimmy, what does a note mean? What's this word mean?
IOU.
This is debt. Okay? So our money today is literally debt. Okay? So if you want more money, what do you need to have?
More debt?
By definition. Okay? Now compare that. This on the right-hand side is a 1928 Federal Reserve or a $20 bill. Notice it doesn't say Federal Reserve anywhere because the Federal Reserve was not in control to the extent they were back then. And it says this on it. It says gold. It says gold. It says gold. It says gold. Okay. This is what money was really meant to represent, which is a receipt for something that's backed. The only reason we ever accepted a piece of paper which has no value is really behind it there was an ounce of gold sitting there that we could go get if we wanted it. Okay? So money is not what it was, and this idea of paying off debt comes from an era of time when money was backed by gold, represented real value, and could not be manipulated. So in that point of time, this Great Depression thinking of paying off our debts, it was a good thing back then because money was fundamentally different back then. Okay? But as you mentioned in 1971, we went off the gold standard. So here's 1971. Nixon took us off the gold standard. And the reason why is all the money was leaving the country. And that's because starting from the world wars, we tried to pretend we were going to stay on this gold standard. But we were slowly, very, very slowly printing money. And we made a lot of promises that we now needed to keep. And other economies were cashing in on that. And as soon as we said, no, we're going to untether the dollar from gold, look at what happened to money supply. I mean, it stayed relatively level for 60 years, from 1910 to 1970. Then from 1970 to this only goes out to 2010, so it needs to be updated. But in the next 40 years, it went from less than $100 billion to 1.7 trillion. So that was the catalyst. This is from up to 1971, paying off liabilities was a good thing. This is why your parents wanted to pay their mortgages off. After that, when money changed and the rules changed, now it's a bad idea because now our economy is completely built and structured on debt. And if we don't have debt, this is why people like Robert Kiyosaki are famous for saying savers are losers. Because we're not playing the rules.
That whole hockey stick right there, all it is inflation.
All it is. Yep.
If all your money is in a coffee can or sitting in a bank, it's just losing value every year.
Yep. You could draw it the other way. If we flip this as a mirror image, that would be the value of your dollar. And we all know that that's lost 97% of its value since 1910. This is why there's more dollars in circulation. Okay. But more dollars doesn't mean there are more houses out there. Right?
Right.
So if there are the same number of houses, but everybody, all of a sudden, if you woke up in the morning, let's say you woke up tomorrow morning and you had $100,000 in your bank account, but then you woke up and the next day you had $200,000. There aren't more houses. There isn't more groceries in the grocery store. There aren't more cars in the car lot, but you've got more money.
So yeah, in terms of dollars, the price of the house will go up.
Everything will go up because everybody has more dollars to bid or try to buy the things that are out there.
Right.
Okay. Now, if only your bank account went up, Jimmy, then you win because you can now outbid everybody else. But if everybody woke up with twice as much money in their bank account, everything would be twice as expensive because everybody wants it just as bad as they did the day before.
And so
it just takes a little time for it to adjust.
And so real estate, since it's in a special class, it's the only conduit a regular Joe has to get some of these government printed money.
Exactly. It really is like printing your own money, because I only have to bring 20% of the money to the table, and then I get to borrow all of this printed money to be able to acquire the investments.
So one, if we were in a free market, there wouldn't be as big of incentive to go into debt because there wouldn't be as much free money being floating around.
There wouldn't be any, right? Yeah. You couldn't do this.
So it wouldn't even be an option.
Yeah, and think about it this way. So I've got an iPhone, okay? And the iPhone, the price of the iPhone has stayed relatively level, okay? But think of flat screen TVs, right? A flat screen TV has cost $1,000 for 10 years, but they get bigger and more advanced for the same price, right? So if I had $1,000 and was going to go buy a flat screen, or $1,000 was going to buy an iPhone, I could buy it now and use it, or I could wait and hold on to my $1,000. And in terms of exchanging it just for an electronic, my $1,000 will buy me more in 6 months when the new iPhone comes out. Right. So my dollars were actually more valuable in something like electronics. Okay. That idea that if I wait to buy my thing till later, if we were in a free economy with money and there was not money printing going on, then that would apply to everything, real estate included. Your groceries would be less, your cars would be less, your houses would be less, everything would be less, because we would become more efficient. You think about a farmer. If I can raise 1,000 times more wheat today than I could 100 years ago, wheat should be cheaper today than it was 100 years ago, because we're more efficient at making it. So and that would apply to everything.
The natural course of every economy would be for things to depreciate.
Exactly. Not because they're worth less, but they're easier to produce. It takes less work and time and effort to produce them.
And if you look at what in our economy, what goes up in price and what starts to count to cost more, you have real estate, you have medicine, and you have education.
Those are the three biggest.
The one thing all three of those have is that government will back loans on all of those.
Yep.
So there's no incentive to, what's going on with college loans and the millennials. There's no incentive for them to say no, because they see it as just a free government-backed loan to pay a regular university $250,000 a year or whatever it is.
And this is what people don't really understand is the government, when it prints money, it has to give it to somebody first. And if they were giving it to their friends, which they probably do, but if they were openly giving it to their friends and all those people we see, Jimmy, if you got the money first, you could go buy all the stuff that you want for free. Like nobody would go for that.
Their friends first. Goldman has to write.
Bankers
have to write.
Wall Street.
Bonds.
That was one thing of the three that you didn't mention. Wall Street investments go up because that's where the money goes. The money has to start in the economy somewhere. Somebody has to get that first dollar and then go spend it. So then that person gets it, and then that person spends it, and that person gets it, and it works its way through. And this is real estate, education, medicine are three of the biggest areas that the government subsidizes, and therefore that's where the money goes first, which is why we see higher inflation there. Okay? But in a truly free economy, back to specific to real estate, 80% of the value of your real estate is the building that is wearing out over time, that costs you money to maintain. Only 20% is the land. So even if we made the argument that they're not making any more land and demand as population rises is going to go up for land, well, still 80% of that thing is wearing out. And a new house is very different than one built 30 years ago. So from technology, it's getting worth less money as well. So with real estate, not only would we have an interest rate we have to pay, but every dollar we're paying back would be worth more than the one we borrowed, giving us an extra incentive to pay that debt off as quickly as we could.
Say that one more time.
Okay, in a free money economy, just like if I hold my $1,000 and wait for the next edition of the iPhone, it was worth more to me. That would be true for every single thing that we buy. So the dollars that I borrow today would be cheaper than the ones I pay back tomorrow. So not only do I have to pay an interest rate on the money that I borrowed, the dollars that I have to pay back are worth more. I could go buy more things with them.
Right.
So I incur two costs to my money rather than the way it is now, which is I borrow valuable dollars now and repay them with less valuable dollars in the future.
Right.
That model would be flipped around, and I would have an incentive to pay off my real estate as quickly as I could so that I didn't have to pay more for my stuff.
Gotcha. I'm tracking on that.
Okay. But that's the way people still envision the economy. They still envision it from a saver's mentality, that I can take $1,000 and they know what $1,000 is worth to them today. And if they put it in the bank or pay down their loan with it, and that's savings, that's equity that they have, they think 30 years from now, they'll still have $1,000. But the math they're doing in their head is saying, well, let's say my car payment, I don't know, what costs $1,000, right? Someone's mortgage payment or food for 3 months or whatever that would be. They're thinking, okay, if I have that $1,000, I can support whatever my lifestyle looks like. But they're not realizing that 30 years from now, they won't be able to do that because that $1,000 will not buy what they thought they were putting in savings today.
Right.
We're doing this mental math that we're not aware of.
What we should do in the next video, we should use the Truth Concepts calculator, and that you can use it without adjusting for inflation, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think we should show those exact numbers, but I'm good on this concept. Are you?
Yep. Yeah. I hope that, like I said, this is intellectually a little deeper, but we've got to rewire and understand money changed. That's why we did this. Money is not what it was when the people who taught you what to do with it were doing what they were doing. Like your parents used different money than you use. And you have to learn the new rules of money, not the Great Depression rules of money. Those worked then. They do not work now. And if you follow that, this is why Kiyosaki, this is why we preach the same thing. You will be a loser if you follow the rules of saving. Savers are losers.
And then just kind of double tap what we've already talked about in the other videos. If we pay down our principal faster, we don't get any more cash flow. We don't get a higher rate of return. And we're playing the wrong rules of money. We're giving up.
Yep.
We're giving up the subsidy that we get because real estate's a special class and we can get very cheap loans on it.
We're giving up the thing that's allowing us to make the returns in the first place, or the substantial portion of the return that makes real estate what it is. So it actually hurts us in that process if we're paying it off.
Yeah. All right, so I'll do the call to action. If you guys want to know more about how to use life insurance and real estate to become financially independent, visit us at cashflowtactics.com and download our mind map. And opt in for a meeting with Brad or Ryan. And then next video, let's use the Truth Concepts calculator and let's not adjust for inflation. Let's see if we can get the calculator to show us what a free market looks like.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right. Thanks, Brad.
Okay. All right. Thanks, man.